are now about to present the main attraction of our world-famous show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Reign Over Me, the Atlanta Reign podcast. My name is Shy Guy, and joining me for the 10th time, the big 1-0, is Norcetto.
Double digits. We're there. It gets you get lost with it. It got there pretty quick, huh?
Yeah, it snuck up on us a little bit, I think.
Yeah, How you doing this week?
I'm doing all right. I've been better. I've been worse.
That says a lot about this last week, huh?
Yeah, it absolutely does, and we'll get into all of that in just a few minutes. But first, we do have a little bit of news to touch on before we get into the Overwatch League team, the Atlanta Reign, where we're going to start things off with a little bit of news coming out of the Atlanta Academy team, and that is that now founding member, or not founding member, but original member of the team, Ajax, is going to be leaving after this season.
Yeah, that's I just found that out a few hours ago, as of the time of this recording, and that was yeah, it sucks to see it. I really like Ajax, and he's a good Lucio. He gets a lot of crap that I don't think he deserves. But I mean, we just picked up Funny Astro as a two-way player, and when you put the two next to each other, I mean, I hate to see it, but Funny Astro is godlike on Lucio, and I just I wish the best for Ajax, and I think he will find a team, but it's hard to compete with him.
For sure. I mean, I think at least like mechanically, Funny Astro seems to be the better player for the most part. Um, I mean that's definitely a hard call to make when it comes to Lucio players, because there's so many like intangibles that go into that position in particular. A lot of times that's going to be one of the main shot callers. So I mean it's impossible for us to know exactly what that looks like kind of behind the scenes. But just from like an outsider's perspective, Funny Astro seems to probably be the more talented player. It'll be interesting to see, in my mind, like how they integrate him, because so far Funny Astro hasn't really been in the lineup at all, as far as I'm aware.
No, this has been this is kind of a DeFran like situation that he had kind of committed a few months back to being a streamer. From he played with London Spitfires contenders team, and actually was one of the only teams until earlier this week that had beaten Fusion University. But yeah, he had dedicated to streaming. He hasn't really been playing with a team for a while, and but I think once he gets really integrated, because I think the issue right now is he's moving to LA because he is on a two-way contract, so he is going to be staying at the team house and practicing with the team, and that way the any kind of latency on contenders is going to be, he's not going to be playing from a different region, so that's going to help him out, and that may have been one of the reasons for the delay of him kind of being integrated into the team, but yeah, I think it'll be a good move, and I think that again, it might take a little bit of time to get that synergy working, but like you said, his mechanics are pretty crazy, and I think it'll be a really really good move for the academy team. My one issue, I guess, or question or concern rather, is that his first game is actually going to be is the first game of the playoffs. So the first time he's going to be playing with the contenders team is that first playoff round, and we'll see how he does just jumping in with the got to hit the ground running on that one, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it'll be very important for them to come away with a win next week. They have one more game in the regular season. Ajax is still going to be in the lineup for that one, and then Funny Astro will be coming in after that. But I think they need to go into playoffs with some momentum, and to have as high a seed as possible going into it to give themselves the best opportunity to get Funny Astro in there, and fully integrated into the team. But all in all, Atlanta, or the Academy team, has kind of had a bit of a turnaround so far this season. They started off a little bit slow after Dogman got moved up and they were playing without a flex support for a little while. But they've come on pretty strong as of late, and I'm excited to see what they can do in the playoffs when they go up against some of those stronger teams that they might not have really had much of a chance against in the first couple.
Yeah, it was an interesting progression throughout the season of, Dogman leaving and then them picking up Perfect and moving Saucy over to the flex support role, which was just kind of strange all around. Maybe they had a long-term plan in mind, and then after seeing kind of what was happening, just kind of said, nope, never mind, and kind of turned it all around. But yeah, once we picked up Bird in that support slot and moved Saucy back to the DPS role, and specifically to that Zarya role that he's been playing a lot recently in the last few months, things really seem to click back together like they did last season. And the team's looking fantastic. And I can only assume, as long as he integrates well, that Funny Astro will kind of elevate it even more. Now, the interesting part is that of the ATL Academy team right now, both supports have been replaced at this point. The rest of the team is pretty solid for the most part, but the supports are neither of the original supports are going to be there anymore.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting to think about. But other than that, I mean, a lot of long-term stability with this team, which is very impressive in Tier 2. You don't see teams sticking together for a long time in that, part of Overwatch. So that's, I think, overall a pretty good sign for them as they continue to develop the talent. And there's definitely some really high-quality players on this team that could eventually make their way up to Overwatch League. And we'll have to keep an eye on that going forward. I'm very excited for what they can do in playoffs. But that's I think that's probably enough about the Academy team.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the real reason we're here.
The main course.
And that is of course the Atlanta Reign, the Overwatch League team, and they had a pretty, I would say, up and down week this week.
I'd say down and up.
I guess, yeah. We started off very, very down in giving the Los Angeles Valiant their first win of the season in a very hotly contested 3-2 series that they just couldn't quite pull out in the end, and that seems like it has been the story of this stage so far.
Yeah, we talked about it last week, man. I was scared of the Valiant. They have lost every game except until now, but they had lost every game, but some of those had been pretty close, and they still had a lot of talented players, and I was just hoping this week wasn't the one where they finally figured it out, and unfortunately, they started to look like a much better team. Now, not putting it all on them, we did look pretty bad, all things considered, but yeah, Valiant is actually looking like they're coming together a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Valiant definitely looked much better this week. I mean, they gave the Gladiators a run for their money later on in the weeks, and that is a team that is thought of incredibly, incredibly highly right now. Has been kind of surging lately over the past few weeks, even going back into stage 1. So I don't think that losing to Valiant is kind of the embarrassment that the record makes it seem like it is.
That's like the argument we use it's true. I'm going to say it's true because that's what we said about the Gladiators, because that was like their first big win, and it's true. That's what we're saying about the Valiant, and it's true. But why do they always figure it out on us? Why is it always us?
I don't know. It's getting to be just a little unlucky at this point. I mean, you
want
can
some plot armor.
Yeah, you can only play the teams in front of you, and unfortunately for Atlanta, so far the teams that have been in front of them, at least up to this point in stage 2, and going back to the end of stage 1, have have really been kind of hitting their stride at the right time, and at the same time that Atlanta has started to falter a bit after a strong start. I mean, we know that the roster shuffles are making an impact here. We know that everything is not exactly stable within the reign at the moment, and they're trying to figure things out. But I think some of it is bad luck. If you had seen Valiant sometime in stage one, I think that's a win for Atlanta. If you had seen Gladiators in the first week or two of the season, that's a win for Atlanta.
Yep.
But that's not the reality that we're living in. So they've got to find a way at this point to kind of dust themselves off and pick themselves back up. And that's not going to be easy, at least in terms of wins and losses over the next several weeks. But I think there were some bright spots.
Yes, for sure. There's definitely some bright spots, and that's something we definitely I want to touch on, because that's something that amongst all of the chatter about these games that people are really upset at certain decisions and certain things that happen. There was a lot of good that is there, and a lot of potential that is there.
Yeah, and the one thing I will say about the Valiant series in particular is that all of the maps that Atlanta was winning, the Paris and then Blizzard World, they looked phenomenal. They looked dominant. They really took it to the Valiant, and it was not, I would say, kind of particularly close on either of those two maps. And the ones that they lost were much more like nail biters.
Yeah. Well, Lijiang Tower kind of
not. Yeah. We'll sweep that aside. That one was not great.
Lijiang Tower was us not coming out wanting to play. But yeah. You like the other ones. You make a good point. Like, we came out on Paris and we just kind of stomped through them. Like we marched straight through them. And then Blizzard World, that was a beautiful defense that we were managed to hold together. Now it's hard to fully tell, how much of that was Valiant still working on putting the pieces together and how much was us, but there's definitely some bright spots on our side.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that doesn't by any means kind of outweigh the problems that Atlanta had, because if I'm going to be honest, the attack round on Junkertown was one of the most like lost I have ever seen a team really look. Yes, they ended up like getting the cap in the end. They didn't get full held, but for the first 3.5 minutes of that round, they just had no clue what they were doing. They had no idea how to deal with KSF on the Widowmaker. And they just looked completely lost for a while.
And this is as good a time as any for me to go into a little my little diatribe, and I'm actually gonna making a video about this tomorrow. But so one of the things that we talked about with this team early on, before the season even started, was the question about communication and how the team was going to perform with being able to talk to one another and plan out attacks and stuff. And we were pleasantly surprised in stage one when they came out. It didn't seem to be an issue. But as was pointed out in a lot of sources and a lot of videos and things like that, Goats with that 3-3, the 3 tank 3 supports, it's pretty much the same thing every time. You call when you want to use bubbles, you call who you want to attack and when you want to move in, and there's just certain plays you make. And from what I understand, the team was taught on a kind of play calling system. You call a play and then you execute the play. With the meta shifting to a much more fluid and much more like map dependent, point dependent, and like different comps coming out, the Reign is having to not only understand, learn, and play a composition, they're having to learn to adapt on the fly. And adapting on the fly requires communicating with one another and making plans just in the heat of the moment. And I think that might be where a lot of this communication is breaking down, because the biggest thing you'll generally see is when we're playing Goats against another team, or when we're playing something we're comfortable with, we're good at kind of moving in and playing that well, as long as we have the confidence and kind of just move on it. But when we go up against a composition that we're not used to, or a player playing like a Widowmaker, or some kind of a bunker comp where we're not used to seeing, and we don't get an early pick, we keep swapping around and we're not able to capitalize on anything. We can't do anything, and it's like we're lost. And that's what I feel like happened on the first point in Junkertown. And it's something that we're having to relearn communication, and that with the meta and the new players, I really think that is the crux of the issue with why the team is struggling so much right now.
Yeah, I really like that the point you're making about kind of the added complexity that the new meta has kind of brought to communication structure in general. Goats is I don't want to say like straightforward or easy or anything, but when you only have like really one thing that you're preparing for, it simplifies your comms to a
Right.
really really high level. And when you are having to adapt on the fly, maybe they just don't have the framework for how you need to communicate that yet, or just yet. There obviously we're still dealing with a mixed roster, even with Daco being out of the lineup over the past 2 weeks. That's still a third of the roster is Korean speaking, and that creates issues, and it's so much harder to kind of communicate those big kind of complex concepts when you have that language barrier. I think it's pretty easy for the most part to implement a structure when you know exactly what you're going to be facing and what you're playing, and how to deal with it. But when you have to adapt on the fly, it can make things just so much more difficult. And that I think definitely bore itself out over the course of both of their series this week. Even in the win against Washington, when they looked much stronger, overall, they still had issues with those kind of unusual comps coming out from Washington at times. The bunker, like you said,
The
when they
bunker on
got full
Paris,
held on
yeah.
Paris. We saw them. They brought out DPS on Rialto, and had a good amount of success with it. And Atlanta was able to clutch things out there, and still win the series. But they definitely don't look as comfortable as they did when Goats was the be all end all.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I think that's a core issue, and something that, like, if you look at what the team's talking about, and you kind of read between the lines, you can see that they understand that that may be one of the issues. There has been some word about uh, where Daco has been, and that he has had some issues with communicating well with supports, or some of the other people on the team. That's all hearsay. I don't know anything, but I mean, that might just be some frustration coming out of the team because of that inability to fluidly communicate, causing some issues. Now, something that was said in the last episode of Rain Rising, that I tweeted this out, and I really really like this, is something that Pokebo said, that I think speaks again to this whole situation. And he said, one of the ways I think we can win is by exploiting the enemy team's weakness, but I think synergizing with the new players is more important and comes before taking advantage of our enemies. And I think that's Bobo's way of just basically saying we got to get our shit together before we can, worry about taking down other people.
Yeah, and that has I don't want to like continuously always like come back to this for like the rest of the season or anything, but those communication problems, I think we're gonna be there no matter what coming into the stage. But when we lost to Fran, I think that just threw like a complete wrench into the entire system. Where not only were we now dealing with a new meta, and perhaps to some extent like a new comp structure, they also had to then be new members, and specifically in Baby Bay's case, a member who might not be necessarily as high of like an individual carry
Yeah.
potential type
Right.
of player. Um, so the issues that were probably always there to an extent are now kind of bubbling to the surface, with kind of the perfect storm of new roster additions, new meta, and perhaps if some of the rumors wind up being true, maybe some unhappiness on the side of Daco in terms of how all of this is playing out.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too hung up on it because, like I said, it is rumors, and we don't
Right.
need to hang too far on it. But honestly, if that's true, it makes me really sad because, like, going back to all the interviews, if anyone asks anyone on the team who's the funniest member on the team, everyone, without missing a beat, says Daco. So that makes me sad if he's having some issues with the team. So, but anyway, that is just it is just rumors. So yeah, not to be taken as truth at all. Like I think someone said that they say he was going to be back this week, though, right?
Yeah,
The
that was
rumors that
part
came
of
out.
that was part of the same thing. It was all coming from Bench Mob. He said that he was told that Daco would be back in week 3, and then he was kind of speculating on the kind of behind the scenes stuff. So
Yeah.
if we can take like the I guess the like reporting side of that to be accurate, then we I guess can expect to see Daco back on the stage next week, which to me is probably a good thing. I don't want to be like too down on Fried as a player so far, but I don't think he's been at the same level that Daco showed us
It,
in the first stage.
it's really weird because Fried is fine. Like he's done his job well when it comes to diva play, and even the talent, the on air talent, has said the same thing that you said that I'm about to say, which is Daco really seems to enable the team to do a lot more, and especially Pokpo. Like with them having worked together for so long, there's been a lot of times where Pokpo is just almost seems a little bit lost or out of position, and maybe that's just the missing piece that helps bring him together. But like when you look at Daco's stats, it's nothing amazing. Like there's
No.
nothing really stand out about his stats, but his presence is so felt when he's out there.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree. I guess the one like specific thing that I have noticed in terms of differences between the two, is that Daco was much more consistent with his defense matrix, specifically in terms of like negating ultimates.
Yes,
With
true.
that's not something that I think we've really seen a lot of from Fried so far. He's had a graviton eat or two over the course of these games, but Daco, I think, was able to do that a little bit more consistently, and that's one of the ways that I think like divas can really make their like individual impact felt. Um, so yeah, maybe Daco is not like statistically the greatest diva, and I don't think he was like among the elite diva players in the league even during stage 1. But I think just seems to have fit well with the team a little bit better, at least during stage 1, and I'll be excited to see him back in the lineup, no matter what that really means for the reign going forward. I think they're their highest potential, like their highest peaks are gonna be with Daco. And
I agree. And just while you're talking, I was trying to think about why exactly, like what exactly I feel about the situation when it comes to those two. And I think that when it comes to talent on the character, I'd honestly put Fried right next to Daco. I think they're the same. But when you take Daco out, you lose. If this is an RPG, you'd lose points in Pokpo. He Pokpo is not as effective when Daco's not there, and that I think is the key here. But Pokpo did look a lot better on versus Washington. He's brought out the monkey a bit, and I thought he looked pretty good.
yeah, I and like you, it was very hit or miss in the Valiant game as well. Like I thought the main tank battle in that Valiant game was really kind of like the deciding factor in a lot of team fights and in a
Yeah,
lot of maps. Like whoever was able to focus down the enemy main tank was winning way more often than not. I think Fate was getting caught out at times. And slowly kind of improved that over the course of the series. But whenever Popo was out of position, they were capitalizing on it. But
yeah,
like you said, he definitely I thought looked much better in the Justice series. Nearly everyone did. I mean,
yeah.
that's kind of to be expected. Um, but it was a much better performance from them at the end of the day. And started to show them finding their footing just a little bit. Maybe I don't expect like huge things going forward for the rest of this stage, especially as we'll touch on later. The schedule
Yeah.
is not going to be kind to us, but they are starting to find themselves. And Baby Bay in his interview after the game, I thought put it pretty well, when he was saying like there's still obvious like issues that we have to overcome, but they're starting to figure out how to play as a team with all of the shuffling that's happening.
Right, and I think that actually this match against Justice really displayed well, because obviously we have round two against Paris where Atlanta was full held, and they had that bunker comp that we just couldn't deal with. We just kept getting melted by it, and that's one of the things we were talking about earlier with having to adapt. You saw the Rain swap characters, I think at least twice, trying to figure out how to get around it, and it just didn't work. But the other rounds, it's like they didn't have to try and get into the nitty-gritty of communication and just kind of felt out what to do, and were able to play as a team. They were able to try to infer what the other players were going to do and have direct call outs, and it really seemed like they were starting, like Baby Bay said, it felt like they were playing as a team more now. Like he said, again, obviously there's going to be some things they need to work through, like communication, like adaptability, but yeah, I see it. I see them starting to play a little bit better.
And this is the last thing I'll say, and all of this kind of makes sense if you think about the Rain in stage two as like a almost a new team. I mean, it's not entirely different or anything, but there's been a lot of changes. The first thing that's going to come for any new team is like figuring out what is like your standard way of playing. And for right now, the standard is still goats. Now there is a lot more room for improvisation and changing things up than there was in stage one. And I think they just haven't quite pinned that down yet. Like and it will hopefully come more and more over time. But I think it's totally understandable for the first thing that you kind of get down to be your standard, your fallback, the thing that you're going to be doing most often.
Look, it's very, very clear from this Justice game what our style is, and that is put Erster on Tracer. That is our style. that was Eichenwald versus Justice was one of the most fun matches to watch because of the couple times you got to see Erster flex over onto Tracer.
Mhm. And
That
that's something I don't think I remember ever seeing him play in the past. I
that's
mean,
because Dufran would flex
oh,
over.
I mean,
Dufran would be the one to flex to Tracer.
oh yeah, I mean, definitely in Overwatch League. I'm thinking even like back
Oh,
pre Overwatch League. He's always been like a projectile specialist and really really flexible. But to see him break out the Tracer like that was very impressive. He obviously performed really well on it, both on the defense and then the crazy 6K to break open point A.
yeah, there's the defensive hold like right over the bridge with right before point B, which was huge. Like that one went back and forth a few times, and he was able to come in and just stay alive long enough by just darting around. It was really like, yeah, it was surprising the how masterful he was, not just on the killing, but of the mobility, and the thing with Tracer is understanding not only where you are, but where you were and where you could be. So for him to have a grasp on that after being a projectile specialist and being stuck in brig jail for so long is impressive. But then of course the ace, the 6K on the attack.
Oh, it made my heart sing. I was so happy to see that. Uh, at least get some glory for the Rain in an otherwise kind of tough week for them, and get them in the highlight reels once
Yeah,
again.
that's another one of those clips that's going to be, that's not like a week clip or a stage clip. That is a season clip. That is huge right there. That's goes with the Dufran Grav Yeet and the Profits. What was it, 5K in the grand finals last year? Just huge plays.
Yeah, for sure.
But that one was that actually the 6K that Erster got was definitely talent on his behalf, but a Dragon Strike had been thrown over the point, and he was able to, as the entire team was backing off together, was able to snag them and then just kind of clean it up. But it was thanks to that Strike that really zoned them and corralled them together. But yeah, it was, and he wasn't the only one to get a huge play. We then had Popo with the Winston ult on Rialto.
Oh yeah, that's true. Kind of forgot that.
Yeah, like after
The
point
craziness
8.
of it all.
Yeah, the I mean, and that's kind of what this all comes around to, is just them having faith in in their choices they're doing, and being able to, like, yeah, they scrambled a little bit, but something we had seen previously was when the team started scrambling, they would kind of play their own game and ignore their teammates and try to make a play, and they'd all die. And now what you're seeing is Erster recognizes that things are getting zoned and decides to place a pulse bomb, or he knows that his team's going to be back, so he works on staying alive. It's not trying to make a big play. It's trying to open up a play for your team or find what your team is doing. And I think that's just, you're seeing that more and more if you look for it.
Yeah, they're starting to let the game come to them a little bit.
Yeah.
Now in a way that I don't think I saw in week 1. So there are some signs of progress for Atlanta overall during this week, and things to be hopeful about going forward. But speaking of which, let's get to it, and we'll preview next week's game, starting with what is probably not going to be the most fun game to watch for Reign fans, and that is of course going up against the NYXL on Friday.
Oh man. So this is this is gonna be fun. Real quick before we fully jump into it, did you see the Dogman is the Yoda dog copy pasta?
Oh my god, yes.
That if it does not play out exactly like that, I'm gonna be disappointed. So I'm gonna be disappointed no matter what. But anyway, so New York. What does it really say about this game? New York is one of the most consistent teams in the league. Every now and then they stumble and sandbag, but I mean they are so good at winning fights that they should lose, winning fights that any other team would have already lost, finding picks when picks aren't to be found. It's they have plot armor. You want to talk about plot armor? NYXL, they have plot armor throughout the season, and
until
then
the playoffs.
and then in the playoffs it falls off.
And unfortunately, we are not in the playoffs right now. So I don't know that this is going to be a pretty showing for Atlanta. Honestly, if they can come out and take like one map and make some more kind of close, give them a little bit of a run for their money, I'm going to be very happy with the result. If it's not a 4-0, I think that's kind of all you can really expect. There's I don't want to say there's no way, but there's no way this is going to be a win for Atlanta. I cannot see it happening. New York has been too good. I mean, they still haven't lost in the regular season so far this year, and to think that Atlanta is going to be the team to break that is a tall ask.
It is a very tall ask, and I'm going to be the man to ask it. I'm gonna be I'm gonna put the crazy out there, because that's who I am and that's what I do. But it will be absolutely miraculous if this is pulled off. I think when it comes down to the individual players, Popo and Daco versus Meko and Mono, I think Popo and Daco can match them if Mono and Meko are playing on an average day and Popo and Daco are playing exceptionally well. And I kind of feel that way almost across the board. I think our weak spot is going to be our DPS, and that's saying a lot. Like, because I actually think we have really, really good DPS, but it's like you said, like it's just so much going on. There's so much talent coming from every single person on the field on New York.
Yeah, if there's like two positions that I think like New York kind of really outclasses Atlanta in right now, it's gonna be that hit scan DPS, or AKA the Zarya player, and probably flex support.
Yeah.
Like Baby Bay versus Nene on the Zarya is just, it's not even close.
Who's gonna
Nene.
throw the missed grab first?
I mean, I'm still gonna go with Baby Bay because he has yet to
Me too.
impress me with his grabs. Like Nene had his one like moment in the spotlight where it really was not great for him in the playoffs, but overall he's been phenomenal all year. And Baby Bay is obviously, I think, still finding his footing on the hero in general. It's not something that he's known for, and not something that he's done a lot in his career. So that I think is an easy one to call. And then I mean, Jonak is Jonak. Like that's the thing.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing Dogman go up against Jonak. Because
the one thing I'll say is like he's not going to have any fear there.
Well, no, Jonak is going to just do Jonak things. He's going to find insane shots. He's going to be super accurate. He's going to be terrifying. But if I know Dogman, he's going to want this so bad. He's going to be looking for every opportunity to do any sort of damage to Jonak just to prove a point. And I'm right there with it, man. I want to see it. But like Dogman has that crazy streak potential every now and then, that crazy clutch potential where he gets a couple of headshots, which is something you see Jonak do a lot more, is those crazy clutch moments. But like, I don't know, I think that could be a little bit better of a matchup than we may give it credit for. I still think Jonak wins it pretty clearly, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I was saying when I say Dogman is not going to be afraid of that, and that's I think the only way to approach a matchup like this. You cannot go into it thinking, "Oh God, I'm going up against Jonak. I can't possibly win this." You have to at least be like confident in your own abilities in that situation. And say what you will about Dogman's performance, it has been good at times and bad at times. But that dude is confident in what he does, and he is not like
driven.
afraid of it.
Yeah, and he's also going to have extra power this week. Did you hear about that? That we might see the haircut this week.
Oh, I did not see that. Is that actually happening?
That is the rumor going around, and yes, you can quote me on that.
Oh, well then, never mind. Easy 4-0 for Atlanta. if that happens,
well, we also have to sign Sabiolbe's dog, right? But this is no. I think you're right. I think Dogman is not having fear is going to really be on his side for this one. I don't know what we could play that we could outplay New York on.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. Like even if we get to play our comfort picks the entire way through the match, and I think that's reasonably likely. If you look at the map pool, it's Busan, Anubis, Kings Row, Rialto. That's some good goats maps, pretty much across the board.
We're not good at we're not good at Busan.
We're terrible at Busan. We're gonna get giga stomped on Busan.
Real quick, I not to go back fully to the other games, but I know we 2-0'd Justice on Busan. But with how well Corey was playing, like, I don't know how. I have no idea how that happened. But anyway, sorry. Busan scares me.
Yeah, Busan is not good for Atlanta. I will be very happy to see that hopefully leave the map pool next stage.
Yeah.
But that one we can read off. The other three maps are good for goats, but it's still not, I think, going to be anywhere near enough for Atlanta to pull this off. So let's get down to the nitty gritty predictions. Are you actually going to be brave / stupid enough to
now I'm stupid enough. Hold on, you go first. You go first.
Okay, I'm gonna call this 3-1 for New York. I'm hopeful that Atlanta can take one map, and New York has been kind of weird all season long. They drop maps to weird teams. They dropped to Justice in week 1 when Justice was just a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Like they've had this in them the entire season. So I will at least give Atlanta one map.
Okay, so when I did my write up and I did my prediction for the week, I actually said the same as you. I said that we might take one map, but I didn't think we were going to win this. But for right now, for tonight, I'm going to make a crazy prediction. I think we are going to win with a 2-1. That's what I think is going to happen. I think we're going to tie Anubis.
And then win Rialto and Kings Row?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's exactly what I think is going to happen.
All right, it'll be.
I need to like put something on the line, so I'm not just like there's actually a risk at me making these horrible choices. But
we'll come up with something.
Yeah. Well, I'll take my licks, but no, I'll do it. I'll do it for the rain. That is my prediction. We're gonna win with a crazy 2-1 and a tie.
We're just gonna pull off like the upset that no one sees coming.
It's
right?
all the pieces are gonna align, and New York's gonna have tummy troubles, and yeah, it's
Savioli's dog is just gonna win the day. Because show me in the rules where it says a dog can't play Overwatch.
Nate Nanzer can't show you because it's not there. So this real quick before we get on to the next game, so I wanted to bring something up because this made me think about it. We were talking about I don't think we can really beat New York at any comp. If we play a comp into theirs, there's nothing that we could really play better than them. Monty brought up recently that teams need to stop trying to play the meta the best and find a style that works for them. Do you agree? And do you think that if we leaned into something that fit more the players that we had, that we could do more damage against a New York than if we just try and keep ramming our heads into the meta? Because I mean, Chengdu has done that,
Yes, I agree with the kind of general take from Monty that teams that find themselves towards the bottom of the like rankings, or when it comes to the meta comp. In this case, we're still talking about goats for the most part when it to that. If you are not, if you find yourself in the bottom 5 of that, I don't think there's really a whole lot of harm in trying to innovate and change things up. And he was specifically talking about the Houston Vancouver game last, where Houston looked so good on triple DPS early on, and then completely abandoned it and got stomped from there. When it comes to Atlanta, the problem is I still think their best looks have been on goats, and that's not to say that would necessarily always be true if they put a lot of time into other compositions.
Yeah,
but it's hard for me to say from the outside that they should just completely abandon goats, because it's not like they look bad on it.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I don't think they are like Houston, who have never once this season really looked good on that composition. And I just don't know exactly where they would go, because I think unless you are doing something like Chengdu, where your style is so far out there that no one can scrim against it, no one can really prepare for it very well. Yeah. If you're not doing that, then I think teams are gonna figure you out pretty quickly.
Yeah. I hope to see more teams fill out their rosters and maybe do some internal scrims so we see more of that. But yeah, I think you're right. I get so excited when we start like laying on the aggression, because I know Sephi loves that and the selfless comp was kind of built on that. And to see games where we're able to successfully hold people at spawn, it just makes me so happy that I wish I could see that soldier again come out and just lay down into the spawn. But yeah, no, I think with top tier teams going up against New York, it doesn't matter that much. But yeah, no, that's a good take.
I will say, given that we're up against New York, which almost certainly means we are not coming away from this week with a win in that game. That I think is the opportunity that you have to like try new things.
Yeah.
Be willing to throw something out there And who knows? Maybe you catch them off guard. Maybe they're not ready for the triple DPS look with Baby Bay, Erster, and Lair. Like,
hey, maybe you come in and win 2 and tie 1 and end up winning 3. Who knows?
yeah, you never know. So I mean, I think there's value there. But I don't want to see them kind of abandon goats completely because they've been improving there, and that's been their best look the entire season. So I don't want to see them go away from that entirely.
That is a good take. I like that.
Yeah. So let's move on to the other game this week, the last game of the week, and the last game before Atlanta gets a little bit of a break. That's going up against the Guangzhou Charge, another team that I feel like has kind of been in the same situation as Atlanta in this stage, with the caveat that they have not won a map yet.
No, but like way worse. What is it?
Yeah.
4 4-0s?
Yes,
Like it is
4 4-0s in a row.
But I mean, but to be fair, look at who they've played. They've played the Gladiators, who are doing really well. The Shock twice in a row, who are considered a top 3 team, top 2 by some people. And then they opened up. Who'd they open up against? Paris. It was Paris. And okay, that one I don't really. No excuse there, guys. What's up? but like, okay, their last 3 games I completely get. But yeah, it's a little concerning for them that they haven't won, even picked up a map. Which makes me feel good, but that's teams like that are hungry. It's always a little bit scary.
Yeah, and I mean it's very strange because going into this stage, I thought this was gonna be a reasonably like good meta for Guangzhou. I thought, all things considered, played pretty well in stage 1. They got the unfortunate situation of having to play Vancouver twice in that stage, and now Shock twice this stage. So just a brutal schedule so far to open their season, like through both of these stages. But I thought they were on the up and up coming into stage 2, and it just hasn't panned out. They haven't really been able to unlock like their DPS talent, which I still think is really, really good for the most part. Him, Happy especially, I thought he would have a chance to start popping off on Widowmaker, but they have just kind of crumbled a little bit.
Yeah, it's I mean, what really is there to say? They're going through a very Atlanta situation right now, which is they were kind of underestimated at the beginning of stage 1, and then kind of showed up people's expectations and are now struggling to keep their heads above water. So I think that the mixed roster may be hurting them a little bit as well going into this new meta. Kind of the same situations with language issues, but I don't know. This one's a trap game for me. This is one that like it seems like it should be really easy to call, but you can't just ignore some of the big plays and big things they did in stage 1. So yeah,
right. I'm not ready to write this team off. There's still way too much talent on this roster for them to be where they are right now.
Right.
At least in terms of standings. And this is going to be a really important week. Like you said, they are going to be hungry. This is kind of the do or die moment for a team like this. They now sit at their overall record is like 3-8 at this point. And if they play us and they play the Spark this week, so they've got 2 very like winnable but very important games, and I think that makes them dangerous. So I'm not ready to put this in the win column for Atlanta right off the bat, but I do think this is probably I mean it's definitely Atlanta's best chance to get a win for the rest of the stage, considering the other 2 games are both against New York.
Yeah.
Big unlucky.
Yeah. Oof.
But we'll have to see. I mean, I'm looking at the maps for this game right now, and unfortunately it starts off on Busan again, which is at this point is kind of ridiculous. Have we played every single game on Busan? Like every single, or because both of our games last week were on Busan. Now both of our games this week are on Busan. We did play, or actually no, we played Lijiang Tower and then Busan against
Yeah,
Valiant.
Busan was the like
The time,
the
yeah, the
tiebreaker, right?
Forgot about that.
Yeah,
It's just not great that we keep seeing that map so often. But
yeah.
the other maps, we got Hanamura, Kings Row, Rialto.
Which is really funny about Busan because like we were really bad as a team, but Erster's fantastic on Busan on that Brigida.
I mean, Erster is just fantastic in general.
He's really good.
That dude has been
He's really good.
kind of the rock for Atlanta so far.
Yeah.
This team
Between
this
between
season.
Erster and like Masa, like those two have been just machines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So let's get down to it. How do you see this one going?
All right, I'll jump into this one first. So I think that we'll be able to tell a lot better once we see how they play against Hangzhou.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think how we play against New York is going to say
Yeah,
anything
we
about how
could
we'll
get
do.
4-0'd against New York, and
Means
I'm like,
meaningless.
yeah.
Um, but I think it really has to do with if they play well against the Spark, I'll be a little bit more concerned. Um, but I think if they lose against the Spark, I don't think it's something they can put together within a couple days. So I think we'll go over them anyway. But I think they'll take a map. I think it'll be a 3-1. I think Atlanta will take it. I think and I think it'll be somewhat decisive. A lot of times we say it was a 3-1, but it was a lot closer than it seems. I don't think it'll be the case for that. I think it'll be 3-1, and we barely lost a map, but we kind of decisively won the others.
Okay. Well, I'm a little bit scared going into this week, just because I'm not ready to give up on Guangzhou, and this is kind of a little bit of a do or die game for both of the teams. So it'll be very interesting to watch. But in the end, I'm gonna go with a 2-1 for Atlanta here. I don't have much hope for us taking Busan. I can very easily see Hanamura wind up as a draw, but I think Kings Row, Rialto will be solid maps for Atlanta here, and squeak out a desperately needed win.
Two 2-1s in a week. That's a crazy predictions coming up. But
Yeah.
I think yours is probably a little more believable than mine. But hey, hold on, hope. Um, and yeah, if we, the biggest thing to take away from this week to me is Guangzhou game. This stage is kind of a wash at this point. I hate to say that, but with 2 games
It
against
is.
New York and what we talked about a couple weeks ago, like they got to win both of the games, and we lost the one to Valiant.
Mhm.
So, this is one of those stages, like you said, it's not going to matter that much if we want to try something crazy against New York. And if we win or lose against Guangzhou, of course we want to win, but it's not the end of the world if we don't, as long as we come back in stage 3 and 4. But what I'm really interested to see this week is how we perform against New York, so we can learn and perform against New York in a couple of weeks. On May the 4th, I think, because that's going to show adaptability. That's going to show if we can learn and really play to their level. Because I think what we've been talking about is being able to play as a team and overcome adaptability. Well, if we already know kind of the way that our opponents are going to be playing and it's still fresh in our mind, that's going to give us a lot of insight into a lot of the potential of the peaks of the team, how high we can get. So that's my biggest focus this week is what we learn against New York going into the follow-up game against them.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll have time to talk about this next week, but I think it's actually going to be a very good thing for Atlanta to have a bye week during this stage to give them more time to gel with the new additions, kind of figure out what they are as a team now, because I feel on a certain level that the identity for this team is kind of shaky at the moment. They don't seem to know exactly what they are, and
Yeah.
that's something that will need to change going forward, especially as they get into stage 3. Like you said, stage 2 is gone. Playoffs are not really in the cards anymore. So at this point, they need to try to at least salvage the win against Guangzhou, because that could be important when we get down to the end of the season. But more than that, I think it's about figuring out what this team is going to be going forward, and how can they continue to improve and make something out of this for the rest of the season.
Right, because again, this is a long season. We got a lot of games coming up, and it's just losing a couple games and hitting a slump it happens, and it's just got to rebuild from it. Got to do the Phoenix thing, right?
Yeah, and
right?
I mean the good news for Atlanta, I think right now specifically, is that between stage 1 or stage 2 and stage 3, there's a month off there, where they've got All-Star weekend and some other things happening. So that's going to be really, really important for them to kind of figure themselves out and reestablish themselves as a team that can threaten for playoffs.
All I'll say is they better take a good month's rest, because I don't know if you're on this, but our opening week, stage 3, we opened with 2 games, one against the Shock and one against the Titans. So
all right, well, we'll cross that very, very scary bridge when we come to it.
Oh my god!
But for now, I think that's gonna just about do it for us here today. It's been not necessarily a fun week for Atlanta, but there are signs of hope moving forward, and we still believe in this team and what they are capable of for the rest of the season. So I'm very excited to see what they can do this week against New York. If they can put on a good showing, that will go a long way to, I think, convincing me that this is not a sinking ship.
Right, and don't let those losses make you forget that Chef Alex with the Rain and Chef Heidi need to have an Iron Chef duel.
Yeah, that's what
Very
this is all really about.
Exactly, it's nutrition
for sure. So thank you everyone for joining us this week. We'll be back next week to break down, hopefully a miraculous win against New York. But we'll see everybody next time, and have a good one.
Have a good one. Let it rain.
I want to play you another recording.
Really? Yes. Really? Yes. Yes. Yes.
I want to play you another recording.
Really?